Have you ever been on a hike where everything seems to be going according to plan, but the plan is a myth invented by optimists? That's how our journey began. We gathered as a group 6 of us, all experienced hikers, ... Well, except for the 6 of us. The main organizer was Pasha. He claimed he knew the route like the back of his hand. Later it turned out he knew them about as well as I know the multiplication tables after 3 glasses of cider. So we gathered early in the morning. Everyone was cheerful, wearing new jackets, backpacks gleaming, as if we were filming a Tourism for Dummies commercial. Pasha pulled out a map, a paper one. In the year 2025, he said, "Here's the trail, here's the rest stop, and here's the overnight stop by the river." 2 hours later, we realized there was no trail, no river, and the map was probably drawn in paint. After half an hour of travel, we realized that being a tourist wasn't a profession, but a diagnosis. Some were lugging a tent, others a pot, and Sasha decided to take a drone to the mountains, because I need to shoot content. After 5 minutes of flight, the drone disappeared into the clouds, and no one spoke of it again. We decided to assume he was now living in the mountains. An hour into the hike, we stopped for our first rest stop because Petya said, "Guys, I'm not tired. I just want to check if the thermos is working." He poured some tea, and it did work. Only the lid wouldn't close. Now he had tea everywhere, even in his boots. When it started raining, we took shelter under a tree. Pasha pulled out his phone and confidently declared, "I'll open the GPS now and figure out where we are." A minute later, he said, "Guys, does anyone have a signal?" There was no signal, but there was a thunderstorm. And then, for the first time, I realized that thunder in the mountains sounds like the ringtone of the apocalypse. While we were standing under the tree, Misha decided to warm everyone up and got out a pot of borscht. Yes, he was bringing borscht with him on the hike, real, homemade, in a jar. When we heated it up on the burner, the aroma was so strong that even the bears from the neighboring gorge probably chuckled appetizingly. When it got dark, we pitched the tents. Well, at least we tried to. We had 6 people and 1 assembly manual in Chinese. In the end, 1 tent looked like a set from the movie Catastrophe. The second one completely blew away in the wind, and the third stood perfectly right on top of an anthill. The fire was lit on the 3rd try after Pasha accidentally set fire to a sock. He later proudly said, "The main thing is sacrifice for the sake of fire. We're sitting by the fire. It's warm and beautiful." Sasha says, "Let's take turns telling a scary story." Petya sighs. "I already told you about the thermos." The next morning, Pasha picked up the map again and said, "Everything's under control. We're almost there." 10 minutes later, we reached ... a parking lot, and the same one we started from. Everyone was silent, and then an old shepherd emerged from the bushes, looked at us, and said, "You guys have been circling my house for 3 days now." Laughter around the campfire. But the most amazing thing was that he had Wi-Fi, and we were so tired, dirty, but happy because we could finally post a story. The next morning we woke up like heroes. Well, ... almost heroes. Pasha said, "Today is the day of the descent. It's simple. Downstream an hour and a half, and we're at the bus." 4 hours later we found ... the shepherd again. The same one. He looks at us and grins. "And I told you you wouldn't leave here without me." We laughed, but nervously. Pasha took out a map, looked at it, then at the sky, then at the map again. "Everything matches," he said. I asked, "Where's north?" "Over there, where it's brighter." "That's the south, Pasha. That's where the sun is." "Well, ... that means bright north." That night the borscht was completely gone. Petya suggested making porridge. He boiled water, poured in the oatmeal, then stirred it for a long time, tasted it, and said, "It doesn't taste good, ... We looked. He'd forgotten to take the spoon out of the salt packet. Now our porridge had a hint of the sea. Misha added chocolate. Now it was the salt of life. We ate in silence, because we didn't want to argue. Descending the trail, we encountered a group of professional hikers. They were wearing helmets, carrying trekking poles, and walking with a steady stride. One asked, "Have you been hiking long?" Pasha proudly. "3rd day." The hiker looked at us, dirty, wet, tired. "Where did you start?" "In the parking lot by the U Medvedya Cafe." He blinked in surprise. "It's right there, around the bend, a 15-minute walk." We exchanged glances. Pasha quickly said, "We were just test driving the gear." The tourists left, and we watched them go for about 5 minutes in silence. Pasha suggested, "Let's split up. Let's split up. We'll find our way out faster." Misha sighed. "Excellent plan, Pasha. That's exactly how people get lost." We all decided to walk together. After 20 minutes, Pasha said, "That's weird. I've seen this clearing before." "Of course," Petty replied. "We had dinner here yesterday." It turned out we were walking in circles. A perfect circle, by the way. If this had been a marathon, we would have medals. In the evening, we heard a noise. Petya turned pale. "It's a bear." Everyone froze. Silence. Sasha emerged from the bush with a stick. "Guys, I was looking for firewood. Did you find it?" "I found it, ... fear." On the 3rd day of the hike, we finally saw lights. Pasha says, "That's it. This is camp. We're saved." We pick up the pace, run, rejoice. We reach the site and there's a wedding. With music, with a cake, and a light generator. The groom is in a suit, the bride is in a dress, and we look like characters from The Revenant. Misha whispers, "Maybe we should say we're from the future?" But we were received very warmly. They gave us a bowl of pilaf and poured us some compote. We sat by their fire, listening to music and laughing, as if we'd known these people all our lives. The groom asked, "Where's your route?" Pasha looked at the horizon and said, "Somewhere ... there, and here, and perhaps within us." Exactly a year had passed. We swore we'd never go hiking again. Well, that is ... until Pasha said, "Guys, I have a new idea. This time everything's going according to plan, and that's where I should have been wary. But no, we were back together again. 6 people, 6 backpacks, and 1 big well. At least it wasn't last time. This time Pasha had thought of everything. I have a GPS, a map, a power bank, a navigator, and a drone for reconnaissance." We exchanged glances. Misha said, "Pasha, do you remember that drone flew away last time?" Pasha answered confidently, "This one's different. It's smart. It's coming home." "The main thing is that it doesn't fly home without us," Petya muttered. The plan was this: reach the summit, pitch tents, and watch the sunrise. Beautiful, romantic, in practice a disaster. The first few kilometers went perfectly. Everyone was cheerful and confident. No one even brought borscht. Everything was going according to plan, until the navigator said, "Turn left in 200 meters." We turned around. 20 minutes later, we found ourselves in a ravine. Pasha looks at his phone, frowning. "That's weird," it says. "You've arrived at your destination?" Misha, maybe this is a funny version of Google Maps? When it started to rain, Pasha said, "Don't worry. I've thought of everything," and he took out an umbrella. One. For 6 people. We stood under it in a tight group, like penguins on a survival mission. A tourist walked up behind us, looked at us, and said, "Oh, a new tent model." The No Chance collection. When it got dark, they decided to make a fire, but the whole forest was wet. Misha said, "Pasha, you said you had everything planned out, didn't you?" Pasha proudly. "Yes, I have a lighter with me, an electric one. Do you know how hard it is to light wet branches with electricity? No way. In the end, we started a fire the old-fashioned way, with despair, faith, and hatred. We were sitting there drying off, and then Petya started philosophizing. You know, a hike is like life. Until you get wet, you don't understand how much you love warmth. Petya, you're just sitting closest to the fire. A noise woke us up in the night. Someone was wandering around the tents. Pasha whispers, "It's a bear," Petya whispers back. "Maybe it's Sasha again, getting firewood?" Sasha, "No, I'm inside." Everyone froze. The noise was getting closer. We went out with flashlights and saw a goat. A huge white goat which had stolen our bag of bread. Pasha, without missing a beat, said, "See? Even nature respects us. It came for dinner." At dawn, we decided to climb to the summit. The journey was short, just a kilometer. 3 hours later, we reached the summit of the neighboring mountain. But the view was stunning. Fog, clouds beneath our feet, the sun breaking through. Misha said, "This was worth getting wet, freezing, and arguing with a goat." And Pasha added, "The main thing is the team." Petya sighed. The team, which again got it wrong. On the way down, we met a group of school children. They were briskly climbing and asked, "How far is it to the top?" Pasha thought for a moment and said, "Yes, very far," and "Maybe we shouldn't." A bus was waiting for us below. The driver looked at us and said, "Aren't you the ones who wandered through the mountains a year ago?" We exchanged glances. Pasha proudly replied, "We're back." "Why?" the driver asked, genuinely surprised. 2 years have passed. Everyone's living quietly. No one's hiking. The injury is almost forgotten. And suddenly Misha sends a link in the chat. Look, Pasha has become an instructor. We open the door, and there's a video. Pasha stands against a backdrop of mountains, wearing sunglasses, and says into the camera, "Hello, I'm Pavel, a professional guide in the Carpathians. 3 years of experience, dozens of hikes, and not a single lost tourist." Everyone is silent. Petya quietly says, "Maybe he's talking about those who were never found?" A week later, Pasha writes to us, "Guys, I've recruited a group of newbies, but one of the instructors is sick. Help, just for a couple of days." We, of course, declined. But a day later, for some reason, we were already sitting on the train with our backpacks. Petya explained it this way. "I just wanted to have some coffee, but the train started moving." At the start of the expedition, Pasha looked confident. Wearing his company uniform, a guide Pavel badge, a radio slung over his shoulder, and a drone in its case. He stood before a group of 10 newcomers and said, "In the mountains, the most important things are calm and discipline." Misha whispers, "This is the man who argued with a goat 2 years ago." Pasha continued, "I'll take you where no tourist has gone before." Petya quietly added, "And no one will." After us. 2 hours later, Pasha decided to take a shortcut. "According to the map, the trail is over there," he said, pointing into the thicket. 5 minutes later, we were walking through windfalls. 10 minutes later, knee-deep in a stream. And 20 minutes later, we were standing on the edge of a cliff. Pasha takes out his GPS, looks at it, and says, "Everything's under control. We're almost there." Sasha asks, "What's that green dot on the map?" "That's me." "What about the blue one?" "That's also me ... from a different account. That evening, around the campfire, the newcomers ask, "Have you ever been in dangerous situations, Pavel?" We exchanged glances. Pasha replied solemnly, "Of course, but I always stay calm." Petya couldn't resist. "Yes, especially when I was running from my own tent because I thought it was a bear." Pasha pretends not to hear, but the group is already laughing. Misha adds, "Or when I tried to light a fire with an electric lighter in the rain." Pasha sighs. "It was a test." For character. On the second day, Pasha announced, "Today we're going to the Maiden's Tears waterfall." 3 hours later, we hadn't found the waterfall, but we did find a sign, "Welcome to the village of Petrikovka." Petya said, "Well, the name fits. The Maiden Tears are those who walked with us." By evening, Pasha had disappeared. We thought he was joking. Then we noticed a drone flying above us, and his voice came over the speaker. "Don't panic. I'm just looking for a way up." 10 minutes later, the drone landed in a tree, and Pasha returned, covered in leaves, saying, "I saw everything. We were going the wrong way, Misha." This is the news of the century, Pasha. When we finally found the camp and reached the base, Pasha looked tired but proud. "The main thing," he said, "is that no one got lost." Petya looked at the group list. "Pasha, there were 10 of us. Now there are 9. They just went ahead," he answered confidently. And now, as we're sitting by the fire again, Pasha says with a serious face, "Guys, I get it. It doesn't matter where you go. The main thing is who you go with." Misha added, "The main thing isn't with you, Pasha.